spring.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But I think we're having better weather than a lot of areas, so
Yeah.
can't complain. Okay, I think we'll get started. I'm sure other people will come on. Before we get started, let me mention that you can put any comments or questions in the chat or the Q&A, which you'll find at the bottom, hopefully, of your screen. We will be sending you a copy of the slides and a link to the recording, probably tomorrow or the next day. So you don't really have to take notes or worry about that. So our presentation this evening is technology for small nonprofit organizations. So I hope that's the one you thought you were coming to. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about SCORE. So, by the way, my name is Anita Kayat. I am a SCORE mentor. And our speaker tonight is Dan Yerman, who is also a SCORE mentor. SCORE has a mission of fostering vibrant small business communities. We do this through mentoring and education. We hope that you, as a small business owner, will receive all the support that you need to get started with your business or to grow your business. We are well aware that small business drives the economy, and particularly in the Cleveland area. Over the last few years, the city has really come back primarily because of the new small businesses that have been formed, and we thank you for that. We are a network of free volunteers. We're the largest one in the United States. We have chapters all across the country. So if someone in the Cleveland chapter doesn't have the right background experience to give you help with your business, we can call on any one of the other 10,000 across the country. So we're sure to find somebody who can help you. So if you go to our website and ask for a mentor, please put in what type of industry and as much about your small business as you can, and that will help us match you up with a mentor who's most likely able to help you. So we offer remote mentoring. We're doing a few in-person mentoring situations, but mostly we're still doing remote via Zoom or Google Meet. We also do webinars. And again, we're starting to do some webinars in person, but most of them are still being done online. One of our best resources is our website, and I would encourage you to go to the website and look at all the resources available. You will find not only a list of all our new upcoming sessions, but copies of the recordings of the ones that have been done probably in the last several months. So if you happen to miss one, you can go to the website and view it at your leisure. So our services are free. We get some of our support from the Small Business Administration, but we also get support from a number of organizations in the Cleveland area that want to support small business growth. So this is a shot of our website. As you can see on the left, you can go and choose a mentor. You can look at local workshops, and local resources are articles, blogs, templates, all sorts of tools and tips that will help you with your business. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who is not only a nonprofit expert, but also a technology expert. So Dan, up to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Anita. Basically, this is aimed at small nonprofits, and by that, I'm referring to, generally speaking, nonprofits that have a budget of, say, less than $5 million a year, which actually will cover a lot of ground. There are, according to some estimates, somewhere between 19 and 20,000 nonprofits in the greater Cleveland area. That's the 7-county region that this SCORE chapter services. And the vast majority of them are in that category. So hopefully this will be useful to you. When you put your questions in the chat, we'll just capture them, and then we'll address your questions at the end of the presentation, if that's okay. Basically, the most important idea I'd like to get across is that technology's not overhead. A lot of nonprofits say, well, it's just computers. I'll put it in with telephones and rent and the facility and so forth. Technology is a form of leverage for your organization, and it's an essential part of planning and budgeting. Basically, in today's world, every nonprofit is going to require technology. Basically, if you hope to carry out your mission and invest in continuous professional development for your employees, regardless of their job title, then you have to give them the hardware and software they need to do their job. And basically, I think, as you're all well aware, the internet is a very powerful and necessary tool, but it also comes with risks. Next slide. So let's start with strategic planning. And in terms of how IT is managed by nonprofits, according to surveys that I've worked on of 250, 500 nonprofits in the greater Cleveland area, it's been shown that the function is rarely or only occasionally dealt with as a strategic asset. Less than 40% of small nonprofits actually break it out and think about it. It's important from a point of view of best practices for nonprofits to make IT an element of your strategic plan. And the reason for this is that there's a strong correlation between including IT in the strategic plan, the level at which you adopt your technology, and how effective you use the IT. Overall, it's part of how you leverage your resources and get work done. Next slide, please. So strategic planning, basically, you want to look at what is your return on investment. And in other words, if you know how much money you're spending on IT for computers, for software, for training, and so forth, the question is, what's your bang for the buck? If you don't have a strategic plan, you're not going to be able to measure this. And from the point of view of budgeting, that would make your IT an uncontrolled cost because the costs simply aren't visible to you. And this, in turn, robs you of some of the productivity gains that you would otherwise get from automating your business processes. And since every dollar is precious for a nonprofit, you really want to try and squeeze the productivity out of the money that you're spending, and that includes the money on IT. Next slide, please. So basically, the first thing to do is to make IT a line item in your budget. And this allows your leadership, your executive director, his or her direct reports, and the board to make an assessment of what's the bang for the buck for IT. Next slide, please. So basically, a budget allocation for technology is basically a surrogate measure, which means it stands in place of how staff do what they do with IT, how they spend their time with it. And basically, regardless of size, the management of hardware and software is a budget priority because the cost of software and hardware is often not a line item. It's thrown in with all the other administrative costs. And as I mentioned earlier, this approach makes them a hidden and uncontrolled cost. That's the last thing as a nonprofit you want to have, is an uncontrolled cost. Next slide, please. So here's some areas. Control of data is really what we're talking about. And really what the hardware and software do is they allows you to control in an automated fashion the information that you need to run your nonprofit. The examples of data include the budget, the money coming in from grants or from fees or from memberships, how you're spending it. If you have clients or membership, you're going to have data about them, donor management, overall fundraising information, grant applications. Some funds may be restricted. You have to keep track of them. Board meetings generate information, and you have personnel information, including hiring, personnel compensation and benefits, training, and so forth. Next slide. So basically, going from left to right here, your key objectives are training your staff to use technology they already have and to get value out of the hardware and software that's installed. One of the things that's probably very frustrating for staff and also for management is they really don't know, in some cases, what the capabilities are that they've been given. And so the training is very important so that they can use those capabilities. And for a lot of nonprofits, technology related responsibilities fall on in-house staff. And as a result, sometimes it becomes another duty as assigned. And that means that person has to stop doing the nonprofits work and doing technology work, which is why I recommend that for technology support, you go out and hire a contractor who specializes in what's called end user support. And this is an annual contract with a list of things that they'll do for you, like answering trouble calls, installing new computers, providing cybersecurity, and so forth. This allows your staff to focus on the work of the nonprofit, and the contractor will handle the IT for you. This is the most common arrangement for very small nonprofits. Is rather try and do it in-house, you hire it externally, also called outsourcing. Next slide, please. So basically, how do you allocate the investment in hardware and software? Well, from top to bottom here, we'll take it in three basic levels. Priority for IT investment should be to control finances. First and foremost, you have to control the money. Second, personnel management. And then third, your programs. The other thing is a lot of nonprofits, and I've seen this a lot going into nonprofits and doing an audit, they went out to Best Buy 10 years ago, bought some computers, and they're still using them. Well, at the rate at which technology changes, you really probably need to think about upgrading your hardware, your computers, and your software about once every 5 years. And your service vendor performance should be evaluated on an annual basis, and you assess their performance with the requirements of the contract. What you asked them to do, did they do it? How well did they do it? And if they're doing well, of course, renew them. And if they're not, find somebody else. Now, the other thing is that nonprofits who have IRS 501c3 status can take advantage of discounts through a group called TechSoup. And there'll be a link at the end of these slides so that you can contact them. And you can get office hardware and software and application-specific solutions at very steep discounts compared to how they're sold retail. So if you have the 501c3 status, TechSoup is going to save you a lot of money. Next slide, please. So let's talk about donor management software. Every nonprofit relies on donors, and a lot of them just put the information to a spreadsheet. But what you really want to do is have a tool that allows you to manage your prospects, which are new donors, to support mass mailings, either by the hard copy in the U.S. Postal Service mail or by email, to run giving campaigns, and for grant applications. Because when you do a grant application, they're going to ask you, well, how else are you raising money? And your donor management system will help you, give them their answer. Now, if you have a membership organization or you have a lot of clients, you're going to need applications that allow you to keep records on them. And this is not only necessary for the services you provide, but there also may be regulatory requirements, especially if you're in healthcare or education. And you just can't do this with casual spreadsheets. or even paper records, because you will, encounter difficulties. So depending on what the nonprofit does, there may be vertical applications that serve their missions. Examples are churches, education, enrollment, class schedules, health, patient records, and using these applications in the cloud whenever it's possible. Next slide, please. So let's talk about social media. The world is full of opportunities in social media for a nonprofit to tell its story, but you need a policy and you need procedures about who in your organization will tell the story of the nonprofit on social media, and how and when and where you'll post that information. And you have to pick the right social media platform. So in some cases, Facebook is good. In other cases, Instagram is good. And there are lots of other social media platforms out there. If you don't feel comfortable in making a choice, this is another opportunity to hire a consultant who can come in and give you some advice. Basically, I'm going to say that the operative word here is don't try this at home if you feel that you're not sure where you're going to go, because you wind up investing a lot of time in a social media platform that doesn't give you what you want from it. So next slide, please. So basically, in terms of social media, I've just talked about deciding what platform is best, having a use policy, so it supports your brand. And this is very important. Your use policy means that one person in your organization is the person who handles social media, and others who work for the nonprofit need to understand that if they post on social media, they can't be posting also about your nonprofit, that this has to be controlled and go through a process where the person who's working with social media reviews the content with the manager or the executive director, and they know what's going out there. Otherwise, it can create a confusion about the brand, about what the nonprofit is doing, and that doesn't work to your advantage. Another thing that's a useful tool is to have an editorial calendar so that you can think ahead about developing content. So let's say, for instance, you have an annual fundraiser and you want to build excitement towards it. Well, if the fundraiser is in April, you probably want to think about starting a campaign to promote it in January. And so you want to build an editorial calendar for the months preceding the event with different posts to social media, email blasts with constant contact and so forth to generate engagement with your fundraising event. Again, this is an area where you may want to hire outside expertise because it is a specialty. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about cybersecurity, and everybody says, "Oh, hackers!" Yeah, ooh. Well, cybersecurity is also very important for the continuity of the organization. And here's a question that I always pose to a nonprofit, and that is, if a hacker takes out your computers and you're not able to operate, how many days of not being able to operate go by before you're also out of business because you just can't get the job done? It's that kind of issue, and that's why cybersecurity is so important. And it's important to have a formal cybersecurity plan and to update it. Now, what is this for a nonprofit that's small? What is a cybersecurity plan? Well, first of all, people have to be trained to understand that a lot of junk comes in over the internet. They need to be able to not click on stuff just because they're curious. If it's not related to the nonprofit's business, don't click on it, don't open it, just delete it. And that's a real simple policy, but people have to follow it. And another thing is, if employees work at home, especially because we had COVID, a lot of employees worked at home. You need to be able to make sure that they're not working with their personal computers with your information, because that creates a problem where your data, especially if it's confidential business information, If it's patient data or curriculum data or counseling data, you can't have that on someone's personal computer. And that means you have to have a computer that's owned by the nonprofit, which they use just for nonprofit work, and they don't put anything personal on it. And that way, it's controlled. It's just can create problems for you if your nonprofit's data, especially if it's sensitive, like some of the examples that I gave you, is mixed in with someone's sports enthusiasms, their kids' hockey schedule, or whatever it might be. That can lead to difficulties. So finally, mobile devices are also very important. Some are phones, some are tablets. If you have a number of people in field locations delivering services remotely, then you need to have them have a phone that is operated and owned by the nonprofits. And that means it has to have a lock screen, which means you would use a 4-digit PIN to get into it, because there's going to be sensitive data on that phone, and you don't want it to fall into the wrong hands. And the other thing is that most of these services for cybersecurity, like Virus Checker and so forth, have annual subscriptions, and you want to put them on automatic update. You don't want that protection to lapse. Next slide, please. So let's talk about governance. Well, a key to governance is the fiduciary responsibility of the nonprofit to manage its finances. And the reason for this is if you're a 501c3, you have to file an annual report with the IRS, probably with the state of Ohio as well, and you need an accountant to help you file that report, and the accountant needs you to have good records so that those reports can be filed and you don't get into trouble. And this is also important for grant applications. So ask your accountant, what kind of accounting software can we use that is right for the size of nonprofit that we are, and which will give you the information you need to do our reports. You'll also need an attorney for regulatory filings and also for your records. And it's important in terms of paper records to keep them in a file cabinet that has a fire rating so if there is a fire in the building, your paper records don't go up in smoke. And it's very important that records of board meetings, especially if the board is considering compensation for the executive director and key reports and personnel files, all of these items have to be treated as confidential business information and need to be kept under lock and key. Next slide. All right, so this is the thing I was talking about in terms of business continuity, is how long can you operate if you have a fire, a flood, or an intrusion like a robbery before you're out of business. And so here's what you need to do to stay in business if you have one of these experiences. Next slide. You need to do a couple of things. The first is you need to have use what are called cloud-based applications. This can be like Office 365 from Microsoft, or Google Workplace from Google. There are other commercial providers as well. I'm just mentioning the two of them for information. Those are not recommendations. And this way, if your computers are damaged, you haven't lost the information you need to run the nonprofit. You can replace the computers in a day or two, and you can get right back to work. If the computers and the data are all local and the computers are stolen, or there's a fire or a flood and they're wiped out, you've lost the data and the computers, and then you're in really deep yogurt. One of the things you need to do is to have an annual inventory of all of the pieces of computers and laptops and tablets and phones that you have, and know who has them and where they are. You need to keep track of the software licenses. When you buy a piece of commercial software like Office 365, it comes with a license. And you need to have information about that when it renews, who's been authorized to use it, and so forth. Similarly, if you have a contractor who is providing you with services, and you have Wi-Fi in the building, internet access, and these other things, someone needs to keep a list of this stuff and have it in a secure place, because again, If there's a problem, if you want to get back in business, you have to be able to put your hands on this information. Next slide, please. Okay, more information. Where can you get low-cost resources for managing IT? Well, N10 is a huge site and has an enormous amount of information on all the topics that we talked about. TechSoup, the slide here, they can arrange for you to be able to buy computers, cell phones, tablets, software, printers, all kinds of stuff at very low prices. You don't ever, if you're a nonprofit with 501c3, you don't ever have to buy this stuff retail. Also, Microsoft has discounted and nonprofit solutions, and so the link is there. Next slide, please. And that's the slides. So let's see what we got in the chat. Okay, we don't seem to have any questions. Well, we're open to questions now. So if anyone wants to post a question in the chat, we're ready to go.
I'm gonna stop sharing, so. No questions? I don't see any. So I would say it looks like most of this information is just as good for a for-profit as a nonprofit. I mean, do you see a significant difference?
Well, yeah, I think for a for-profit, you would have a sales function, identifying prospects, closing deals, return on investment for marketing, the market, and so forth. I think that would be an additional element that you would have in a for-profit business, and also if a business has stock, you would have information about that. So those are some examples. All right, what are some ideas for beyond QuickBooks? I'm going to refer you to your accountant. I'm not a CPA, and so it's really beyond my scope to give you a recommendation. QuickBooks is a good place to start. They have a number of different versions, from simple to very complex, but ultimately your CPA is your best source of expertise to answer that question.
And for those of you who are asking, I did mention we will be sending out a copy of the slides and a link to the recording. And also you will, in the next several days, be able to find the recording on our website.
What are some names that are good? And what kind of names are you referring to? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I don't know.
For the person who posted, oh, I see you want some names of accounting. Again, I'm going to refer you. Okay, if you want to jumpstart by hiring 1099 contractors to an application, again, your CPA is the right source of expertise for that. Because you will have to have a tax ID number for each employee, that's even if they're 1099, and your accountant can give you the necessary IRS forms to fill out for each employee, because you'll need a social security number and a home address for them, and you'll need to be able to issue an earnings statement at the end of the year to them so that they can file their taxes. CRM suggestions. CRM for nonprofits is not a mature area. Basically, it's divided into a couple of different types of applications. For most nonprofits, there's a class of software called donor management software. And N10, which is one of the links that I gave you, has a review of donor management software packages from simple to the most complex. Recommendations for local CPAs. Let's see. We have a link for that.
If you look on our website, there you will find some resources regarding that. We are not allowed to give you specific recommendations. And unfortunately, if you want a lawyer, you can call the local bar association and ask for a list of lawyers that deal with small businesses, but the CPA unfortunately does not have that same service. So
The Cleveland Bar Association has what's called a pro bono service, which just basically means free for nonprofits. So if you're in Cuyahoga County, contact the Cleveland Bar Association and ask for their section on pro bono services for nonprofits. And it's quite possible, because many lawyers work with CPAs, that the attorney, once you have talked with them, may be able to give you some suggestions for CPAs who specialize in nonprofits.
I think the point of our presentation this evening is to just make sure that you give some good thought to your technology and make sure that it's not something that you shovel under the rug until you have money to spend. It should be right up there on the top of your list of things that you need to set aside funding for.
Let me mention something else, just as long as we've got the audience here for a minute. In terms of hiring, if you're going to be hiring people coming out of high school or coming out of college, this generation is what's called a digital first generation. They have always had technology available to them, and they have grown up with it, and it's as much a part of their lives as television and radio was for my generation or Anita's generation. And so they are going to be looking at a nonprofit where they might be thinking of working, is how mature, how sophisticated is this nonprofit in working with technology? And if, with all due respect to the audience, if your situation is confused or not well organized, you may lose out on a high quality hire because they're really looking to see to leverage technology to do their jobs. And if they see they can't do it, that may not that may not be persuasive for them to to accept a job from you.
So, well, it looks like we have covered all the questions, and so I want to thank you, Dan, for a great presentation, a lot of good information. And I also want to thank you all for spending some time this evening, and I hope that you found it was worthwhile, and hope that we'll see you again. So in the interim, have a pleasant evening.